Okay, I will show my presentation. Please, Marisol, you can see my presentation?
Yes, I can see.
Thank you. Okay. Welcome everyone to this second session of our workshop on technology transfer best practices. This is the second session, and I want your help to go to this site of Menti or read this QR code, so you can answer 3 questions that will help to our panelists identify the role of the people that are here with us. So maybe they can focus in this role or the people that is working in technology transfers. So please, also Marisol will introduce the link in this chat so you can easily go to this site. Well, in the meanwhile, I will present to our 2 guests and panelists of this second session. We have the participation from Mexico, Doctora Rosario Castañón. I will read a description, a short bio she sent us. At 15 years old, she joined UNAM, National Autonomous University of Mexico. So she could say, my skin is golden and my hair is blue. Your professional slogan is who perseveres achieves. But in transference, she has had to develop other qualities, particularly tolerance for frustration. Thank you and welcome, Doctora Rosario. And the key elements or the best practices she detect after work more than a lot of years in transfer technology issues. She described these best practices, these elements about the environment, about the multi-focus approach, this holistic approach. And I will recommend to our the people that is participating in this session that identify these elements, take note. So maybe you will ask one of these elements that maybe at the end of the session, maybe you want to recover and we can discuss deeper in one of these elements that Doctora Rosario sent us as the best practices that we will talk more in the next phase of the presentation. And in the other side, we have the our guest, Dr. Stephen. Steve worked is the Chief Executive Officer for IUTM, which is focused on supporting and enhancing technology transfer globally. Before joining IUTM in 2015, Dr. Susalka worked at technology transfer offices for over a decade and previously earned his PhD in neuroscience from the University of Virginia. Welcome, Steve, to this session.
Thank you.
And Steve share with us these 4 bullets about the best practices and answering the question, what is on the horizon for technology transfer? From his perspective and his experience in the United States about the transfer technology processes and activities. He say that the next or that we need to take in account in the future is broadening from patent licensing only, defending the IP system, diversifying the innovation ecosystem, growing economic engine, focus with a focus in startups. So we'll talk deeper in these topics during the next phase of the presentation. Thank you, Steve, and welcome. Yes. Well, this is the 4 bullets and the bullets that I say in English. Okay, thank you. Okay, and we will start with some one answer that Dr. Rosario say to one of the questions we sent to our panelists. She said that the technology itself is important. However, trust, respect, effectiveness, commitment, balance, support, institutional support, they are even more important than the value of the technology. So in this bullet or in this aspect, Dr. Rosario, can you share with us some strategies or some cases where you apply these relevance or these elements so we can do the same with our processes of technology transfer in our institutions or in our offices?
Thank you, Emmanuel. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. And Stephen, I want to apologize because I will speak in Spanish. As you can understand, I feel more comfortable speaking my own language. Gracias, Emmanuel. Pues sí, indudablemente, yo creo que la tecnología, pues no podemos minimizar su valor y su importancia, ¿no? En este tema, pues de transferencia de tecnología es el objeto que transferimos, es el objeto de nuestra labor. Pero en mi práctica profesional, creo que por muy buena que sea la tecnología o los elementos técnicos detrás de la solución de un problema, si no existen estos elementos, lo más probable es que ese proceso de transferencia de tecnología fracase. Con esto, tal vez me gustaría hacer la reflexión de que todo el proceso de transferencia de tecnología, a final de cuentas, es un proceso de interrelación humana. Y que como tal, estos principios son básicos. Sobre todo porque estamos pensando que muchas veces las relaciones que establecemos entre el oferente y el demandante no son relaciones de un día, no son relaciones de una semana, sino, sobre todo cuando son exitosas, son relaciones de largo plazo. Y como toda relación humana, inclusive llámese de amistad, de compañerismo, de laboral, etcétera, nuevamente son los nuevos principios, son los valores sobre los cuales podemos construir y soportar el resto de los elementos. Sin estos cimientos no es posible. Y cuando hablamos de confianza, ya en términos de relación de transferencia de tecnología, pues nos referimos justamente a poder poner sobre la mesa realmente lo que tenemos en nuestra bolsa. Muchas veces desde las instituciones de educación superior pensamos que tenemos la solución completa para un problema. Tengo un kit de diagnóstico para cáncer, tengo un tratamiento para cirrosis hepática. Cuando empezamos a desmembrar el paquete tecnológico, nos damos cuenta que solamente tenemos una parte. Y tener una parte no es malo, ¿no? Es simplemente estar conscientes de que no tenemos todos los bloques. Entonces, la confianza parte desde el hecho de poder, ahora sí, como que poner las cartas que tenemos sobre la mesa de ambos lados y sobre los cuales se vaya construyendo este puente. El respeto que va desde no minimizar el trabajo del otro, el respeto, si ustedes quieren, desde poder acudir a las reuniones, respetar, por supuesto, los acuerdos que se hagan. Si dijimos X porcentaje de regalía, que no los estemos cambiando a cada momento, etcétera, etcétera. Efectividad, pues sobre todo en estas cuestiones de poder presentar resultados que puedan ser comprobables y obviamente que podamos proporcionar una solución en la cual la empresa esté interesada y que perciba que le genera un valor. El compromiso, ¿no? Es este compromiso que va desde cumplir los acuerdos que se vayan realizando a lo largo de todo el proceso, el equilibrio creo que es sustancial. Siempre hablamos de estas negociaciones tipo gana-gana y yo creo que no se puede dar esta circunstancia si no hablamos de un equilibrio en donde pues no, por lo menos no exista esta sensación de que alguien está aportando más, que alguien está eventualmente tomando ventaja del otro y por supuesto el respaldo.
Doctora Rosario.
Sin el respaldo institucional autónoma de México, en donde sin estos elementos nos tomamos más tiempo para firmar los contratos, nos ponen ciertas trabas, que no es aceptable el pago frontal que nos ofrecen, que las regalías no son suficientes para lo que estamos aportando. Entonces, en definitivo, el respaldo institucional en todo el trayecto de la transferencia de tecnología es vital.
Thank you, Doctora Rosario. And do you have any strategy or a mechanism that you use in your team to increase this trust? You say some examples about when the research team present to the transfer technology office the prototype, and they say they have all the elements, but when you do the work to review the real or the documents or the evidences, you discover that don't have really the elements that they say they have. How you resolve or you increase this trust in the team? Is a cultural element, or what you do?
Yo creo que en este mundo encontramos de todo. No me niego a creer que sea una cuestión cultural. En todos estos años que llevo trabajando en el tema de transferencia de tecnología, he encontrado de todo. He encontrado casos en donde una empresa, por ejemplo, dice, necesito una prueba de tu material para ver si funciona. Y el investigador, tal vez por desconocimiento o tal vez de buena fe, proporciona muestras del material, la empresa ve de qué se trata, eventualmente piensa que lo puede reproducir y jamás regresa y después nos enteramos que pudo, que solucionó o que hizo, ¿no? no sé cuánto tiempo tengo, Emanuel, pero me gustaría tal vez comentar un caso, ¿no? Que
Yes,
para el
please.
caso de la UNAM fue icónico. Un investigador del Instituto de Biotecnología hace ya muchos años desarrolló un compuesto a partir de el vampiro, del murciélago, ¿no? Y que su propuesta era, con esta sustancia se puede elaborar un fármaco que sea con fines anticoagulantes. Se transfirió la tecnología a una empresa transnacional y bueno, pues se hizo el contrato, se pactaron regalías, etcétera. Pasó el tiempo, pues aparentemente no sucedía nada y de repente alguien felicita al investigador diciendo, oye, pues te felicito porque tu tecnología ya está en el mercado y es un éxito. Y entonces, no, pero ¿cómo si no sabemos nada? O sea, la empresa no nos ha reportado nada y por supuesto no nos ha pagado nada. Y bueno, pues a la hora de que se empieza como a hilar, a ver todas estas partes del rompecabezas, pues nos damos cuenta que también al entrar en contacto con la empresa, dice, pues yo no voy a pagar porque yo no he vendido nada. Oye, pero el producto está en el mercado. Ah, sí, pero lo que sucede es que yo sublicencié. Uh-huh. Y a la hora que estoy sublicenciando la tecnología, pues como esa cláusula no la pusimos en el contrato, pues nada me obliga a pagarles a ustedes, ¿no? Entonces, por un lado, como equipo de transferencia, pues en aquellos, les estoy hablando de hace 35 años, pues sí, ¿no? Se nos barrió, se nos fue esa cláusula de que no podía sublicenciar. Pero también creemos que de alguna manera, pues la empresa lo vio en su panorama y quiso como aprovechar. Afortunadamente, este caso tuvo final feliz porque sí se llegó pues a un acuerdo de decir, oye, pues lo que estás haciendo no es correcto. Ajá. Hubo un investigador internacional que como que metió y dijo, oye, pues si tú sigues con esa, intentando pues hacer ese bypass, ajá, voy a publicar una carta en una revista internacional y la empresa obviamente se dio cuenta de que podría dañar estas circunstancias su imagen y entonces, bueno, pues se llegó a un arreglo. Esta tecnología es la que más regalías le ha dado, creo que en toda la historia a la UNAM. Tuvo final feliz, ¿no? Pero son como de estos elementos y estas circunstancias en donde tú dices, bueno, pues así como existe la empresa, a veces también el investigador, que dices, oye, tienes que tener los resultados y pues después te ponen miles de pretextos, ¿no? Entonces, la confianza es algo que se va construyendo día a día. Uh-huh. Y que como dicen por allí, para ganarla es mucho trabajo, son muchos años, pero la puedes perder en un instante. Uh-huh. Entonces creo que es algo súper valioso que tienes que procurar, construir y conservar, ¿no? Pues eventualmente con esta empresa sí se han hecho otros contratos, pero yo estoy segura de que si no se hubiera resarcido, ¿no? Esa eventualidad de que no querían pagar las regalías, pues hubieras pasado como a la lista negra eventualmente.
Thank you, Dr. Rosario. I think this is it's a very good example of how the lack of trust or the absence of trust in one of the parts of the elements or the teams that form or that integrate this process of transfer of technology maybe can provoke or create a problem that don't allow the successful transfer of the product to the market. But in this case that you described, fortunately, as you said, the end is a good result. So, but it's good to take in account the redaction of the sentences that form part of the contract when we make transfer technology.
Así es, a partir de esa experiencia, pues al menos todos los contratos que caen en nuestras manos llevan esa cláusula de sublicenciamiento, porque obviamente fue una experiencia negativa con final feliz, pero no todo termina justamente en ese final feliz, ¿no?
Yeah.
Y creo que eventualmente uno puede darse cuenta, pues por ejemplo, no empiezas compartiendo toda la información, no empiezas compartiendo información confidencial, entonces como vas de a poquito y en ese poquito a poquito puedes darte cuenta si tu contraparte es de confianza, te respeta, si hay compromiso, equilibrio, etcétera, ¿no? E insisto, es de ambas partes. No, en el ejemplo que yo puse, bueno, quien no actuó de buena fue la empresa, pero pues eso también hay equipos dentro de las instituciones que pues hay que darles también el jalón de orejas.
Okay, from challenges also we learn, no? So this is the objective of this is the result of this experience you have with this project. Thank you, Dr. Rosario. Steve, also you described that one of the biggest barriers is the lack of support from the institutions to in the way the technology could arrive to the market. But I don't know if also you detect in your experience these situations of the lack of trust, if you detect also in United States that I don't know if you resolve in some way, or you want to share with us some of your experience in how you resolve of how you implement some strategies to increase this trust in both ways from researchers and from the companies or from the investors.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and you're exactly right. I view a innovation as a seed. So you plant the seed, but you have to have the right environment to support that. And a environment that is not supportive will not let that seed grow. And so the comments around trust are absolutely critical. And I'll tell you that that is an issue all over the world. Developing that trust. And I'll focus on kind of two different aspects of it. So one is internal and the other is external. So on the internal side, so engaging with researchers, one of the ways that we've tried to address the trust issue is engaging with our researchers earlier and earlier. So you don't want to do it at the end when they don't know you. They have their pretty baby, and you're telling them that maybe their baby isn't good enough. You don't want to be in that situation. You want to engage them earlier and earlier. A couple of strategies that have been used here, and I'm sure around the world as well. One of which, and I actually found this to be really valuable, is having an internship program. So it sounds a little funny, but what we often do at a tech transfer office is we will create a program where we will bring students in to intern in our tech transfer office. The secret of that is we often select those students according to the departments that we want to be engaged with. So to say that another way, if you want to be more engaged with your biochemistry faculty, and you have a student that's in the biochem program, we will take them into our program. We will help teach them about tech transfer. And then what's great is they become an ambassador, someone who supports your office when they go back to their campus or back to their department. So it's a great way to grow that trust. So when people have a question about an innovation, maybe before they come to the scary tech transfer office, they'll go to the intern and say, I've got this idea. And the intern might say, oh, well, you should talk to Rosario. You should talk to Steve. And having that entrance to the departments really helps build trust. So that's one very tactical thing that we do. Another aspect of that is often we require the interns to provide a presentation back to their home department. So as maybe in other universities as well, sometimes the department might not want to hear from a tech transfer person, but they always want to hear from their own students. And one of the requirements of many internships is that the advisor of the intern will sit in the back of the room. So I'll go in the back of the room, and the intern would speak about tech transfer. The department would listen. Invariably, every time what will happen is the intern will be asked a question that they just don't know. They might not have that much experience, but that allows them to point to the tech transfer person and says, oh, well, let me introduce you to Steve or Rosario or Emmanuel to answer that question. And it's a great way to create that FaceTime with the department before it gets too challenging when you have the actual invention at the door. I hope that makes sense. So that's an example of engaging with faculty earlier and earlier. So when those inventions come, they know you, they understand what you do, you hopefully have a relationship with them. I think that helps build that ecosystem. On the external side, so you're talking about companies, the United States ran into this. So prior to the Bayh-Dole Act in the United States is really when universities started commercializing intellectual property. Before 1980, very few did that at all. So companies were not used to it at all. There was a period of time right after the Bayh-Dole Act where companies just felt uncomfortable. You know, hey, I've never worked with you guys before. How does this work? And again, it's like any trust. That trust has to be earned through interactions, through keeping your promises, through being very upfront with the other entity to go forward. One of the phrases I've heard is trust is the residue or what's left behind after promises are kept. And I think that's a good way to kind of think about how to build trust.
Great. I love this metaphor of the seed and how you need to put some ingredients as by example this the ecosystem that help this seed grow and create this ecosystem we call transfer technology ecosystem. But the trust is one of these ingredients we need now. If we don't have, then we don't have a tree.
Yep.
Maybe this tree never will grow up as we need. And definitively, this strategy you show with us, you share with us about the students as ambassadors is great, really, because maybe the students don't will will get help with the office, but maybe with other students, maybe
Yep.
they
Yep.
will have this confidence to talk and ask the questions. And also in this way, Steve, you also describe one or write some of the bullets about diversifying the innovation ecosystem at the institutions. What do you mean with diversifying the innovation ecosystem?
Yep. Yeah, so great question. So we believe at Autumn that that innovation happens everywhere, but it's only commercialized where resourced. And so what I mean by that is innovations are happening across the United States, across Mexico, across the world, regardless of the institution. And so one of the things that I think is really important is to cultivate, grow those innovations wherever they might arise. Now, some innovations might be more obvious, and they may be the senior professors on your campus. And those are great inventions and we should pursue those. But there are other areas of inventions. So for example, we spend a lot of time trying to identify other inventors on campus, whether they're faculty members, those are the ones that are the first ones we think about, but students, staff. There are inventions that are occurring on your campus all over. And so reaching out to those different groups is really important. And so maybe I'll talk about it in two different ways. Again, one is internal, so inside your institution. The other is external, outside your institution. So on the internal side, again, reaching out to underrepresented groups on your campus. So does your tech transfer office communicate with the graduate student program? Do they communicate with staff? Do you reach out to departments that maybe you've never heard from before, but maybe it's not because they don't have inventions, they just didn't know what to do. So again, diversifying where you receive those inventions. I think about it a little bit like opening the funnel. So not every invention will be the next product or service of tomorrow, but the more innovations that start at the beginning, the more you'll end with at the end. So that's one aspect internally. A second internally is, at least in the United States, we receive a lower percentage of inventions from women. As just one underrepresented minority, and there are others. And so we have developed strategies, and I'm happy to share, I'll drop into the chat or share after the fact. We've developed a Women Inventors Toolkit, which is a way for us to engage with female inventors that might not come to the tech transfer office at the same pace that perhaps a male inventor might come. So those are areas of opening that funnel, receiving more inventions from a wider group. Externally, and again, I'm not sure exactly how this translates into the Mexican innovation ecosystem, but at least in certain areas in the United States, we focus sometimes not even just within the walls of our institution, but the smaller universities, institutions outside of our university, but within our region. And so what we're seeing in the United States are more regional innovation clusters. So you might have a very large institution that leads tech transfer on their campus, but they provide support to the smaller colleges or universities in the region that don't have support. And again, innovations are happening on those small campuses just as much. So again, these are two examples of expanding and diversifying the innovation ecosystem.
Great, Steve. Definitively, after we need to talk about the Women Inventor Toolkit and this approach of regional innovation clusters, because in Red OTT we have this regionalization, and we divide our country in sectors. So it's interesting. Maybe we will need to know more about this methodology or strategies, so we can increase the impact of the office transfer technology and taking in account these areas of these regions. Dr. Rosario, how you do in your university reach out other groups, as Steve said, for example, women's and other the staff in the university. I don't know if there is a way in your university you discover other opportunities to reach the innovation process.
Sí, Emanuel, creo que no tan enfocado en estas cuestiones de género, pero sí incluyendo a actores diferentes a los investigadores. Como bien señalaba Stephen, pues es como lo natural, ¿no? Lo más relacionado con transferencia de tecnología, pero me parece que desde hace ya algún tiempo la universidad contempla el término de comunidad universitaria. Y dentro de la comunidad universitaria, pues por supuesto, insisto, están los investigadores, pero también ha ampliado hacia la parte administrativa, por supuesto, también ha ampliado hacia la inclusión de estudiantes, e inclusive ex estudiantes, ¿no? Y concretamente, por ejemplo, en los programas de incubación de empresas que ha puesto en marcha en diferentes momentos, la comunidad objetivo ha sido esta comunidad universitaria en extenso, ¿no? Exalumnos, ex trabajadores, personal administrativo, los investigadores, y entonces creo que eso también pues da oportunidad, como mencionaba Stephen, pues poder tener una piscina de mayores ideas que recoger. Y yo aquí solamente quisiera añadir que no basta con tener las ideas, sino que también hay que apuntalar con esquemas que lleven a buen puerto todas las etapas. En el caso de concreto de incubadoras que estoy mencionando, pues al aceptar a exalumnos o alumnos, pues por supuesto cuentan con toda la asesoría, con los espacios, en fin, con todo lo que se ofrece para los investigadores a todos otros miembros de la comunidad. Pero si simplemente es recibir sin dar los otros apoyos, los resultados realmente creo que serían de menor impacto y alcance.
Great. Thank you, Doctora Rosario. Marisol, can you share with us the results of the Menti survey, please?
Yeah.
Okay. The main role is professor, researcher. Okay, researcher, professor. And there is a transfer technology office people. Okay. Thank you. The next one, please, Marisol. The country, Mexico. Okay. Ecuador. Okay, okay. Great. Thank you. And the next one. What are your expectations from this session? New information, cooperation, learning, positive experiences, know about other ecosystems. Great. Thank you, Marisol.
You're welcome.
And again, I will share. We have a question in the chat. I don't know if it's Steve or Dr. Rosario want to answer. Which is the difference between technology transfer and technology collaboration?
Bueno, si me permiten, puedo dar una respuesta, ¿no?
Please.
Normalmente la transferencia de tecnología la asociamos al licenciamiento de títulos de propiedad intelectual. Sin embargo, los mecanismos de transferencia de tecnología pueden ser o son mucho más amplios, mucho más diversos. Y aquí entra la cuestión, por ejemplo, de asesorías técnicas, la cuestión de consultoría, ¿no? La cuestión de inclusive poder incorporar personal con ciertas especialidades y por supuesto la colaboración tecnológica es una de las tantas formas que existen de transferir tecnología. En esta parte colaborativa, que podríamos asociarla al desarrollo tecnológico, es que partes unen sus capacidades, sus esfuerzos para poder lograr un objetivo común. No sé, en alguna parte de mi historia, por ejemplo, tuvimos la colaboración tecnológica entre la escuela, la FE Zaragoza, la Facultad de Estudios Superiores Zaragoza, con una pequeña empresa que quería hacer un desarrollo tecnológico para hacer síntesis química de vitamina B2. Entonces, las dos partes, la empresa puso recursos monetarios, puso su planta piloto, puso la experiencia, y por el otro lado, la FE Zaragoza también puso a los investigadores, a los alumnos. Se combinaron ambos esfuerzos que resultaron en el desarrollo de un proceso químico para tener al final vitamina B2, partiendo de materias primas baratas y nacionales. Entonces, creo que esa sería como mi respuesta. Espero que haya quedado clara y no sé si Stephen quisiera complementar con algo más.
Thank you, Doctora Rosario. Steve, do you want to add some elements to this question?
Sure, and I think now I need to apologize. I may say some of the things that Rosario said. I tried to follow, but my Spanish is not excellent, not as good as your English, Emmanuel. So I think that the question I heard is the difference between technology transfer and technology collaboration. And so it's a really good question because those two things are getting closer and closer together. At least we are seeing in the United States the way I define those terms. And again, they might be slightly different. So let's just define those terms real quick. Technology transfer is there is a technology in one entity, generally a small nonprofit university setting. Yet to advance that innovation into a product, it needs to go to a for-profit company that will turn that into that product that you see in your store shelves. So the process of moving that technology from the university where it's invented to the company to commercialize it to the public is technology transfer. That's kind of how I think about this in broad scope here. So that's technology transfer. Technology collaboration is two entities working together on a particular area of interest. So it's a little different than one entity creating the invention to be advanced by another entity. And the reason I said it was such a great question, and because those two fields are coming closer together, is because one of the things we're seeing in the United States is a technology transfer office is not limited to activity between the time they get an invention and the time they license that company, that invention out to a company. You know, in the old days, decades ago, that was tech transfer, just in between those two arms. What we're seeing now is more technology collaboration earlier, before an invention is even created. So, for example, a company in the same city as your university might be interested in some type of medical device. So they come to the university and say, hey, we're interested in this problem we're having with, I don't know, you make it up, with a particular type of needle or a particular type of imaging technology. Hey, university, what resources do you have to help us answer that problem? So that to me is more of a technology collaboration. Let's work together to find the answer. Well, let's say we find the answer. That answer might be owned in whole or in part by the university. And then you shift to technology transfer, where that invention is now licensed. And rather than in some offices where you have to find a company that might like this invention, now you know exactly the company that's interested in the invention, the one that you did technology collaboration with. So again, I hope I didn't repeat anything that was said, but that's kind of my view on those two terms and how they relate.
Great, thank you, Steve. Yeah, it's interesting how you describe the new role of that office transfer technologies. Is not only you receive the invention and you transfer to the companies, we have now a new challenge that is integrate with the companies, with the people, detect real problems, and also we need to communicate what we do. That move me to the next questions, or the next issue. You say, Steve, that the technology is simply changing the world for the better. It is our responsibility to communicate that positive impact, both internally and externally. But Steve, how we do that?
Yeah, so it's much easier said than done. I will say that. And I'm sure each of you have had the same challenges of communicating something important, both internally and externally. But here's the important part, right? So the work that is done in technology transfer is vitally important. That is creating all of those products and services that are changing the world. So we recognize that that's important. But here's the thing, we have to communicate why that's important, and we have to communicate the successes that we have. It's important to do those two things, because once you start talking about invention disclosures and patents and confidentiality agreements, people just start paying attention to something else. So instead, we need to highlight the successes we have. And that needs to be done, again, internally and externally. So internally, what I mean is, when your university has a successful invention and it's licensed and it's now on the market, you should highlight that to everybody you could talk to in the campus. From the president, I mean, what a great thing for the president of your institution to talk about. Oh, here at our university, we believe in research. We're changing lives. In fact, we have a researcher that developed this product. Hold up the product. They would love those stories. And so anything a tech transfer office can do to put that story in front, great. So that's one way. So that's at the top level, right? The president level. At the university level, and this is frequent at American universities and perhaps Mexican universities and elsewhere, is highlighting a inventor day. So every year, having some celebration of the innovation on that campus, and award an Inventor of the Year plaque. Inventor of the Year goes to such and this person. This person has revolutionized how we treat diabetes. Again, it's all different things. That's an opportunity to invite faculty. That's an opportunity to invite press, reporters that cover the university and the area, to see, look at what's going on. I didn't realize this. So that's another great way. Many universities will give out patent plaques for all the patents that are issued that particular year. So it turns into a celebration. So that's one way to internally promote the successes that you're doing, right? So that's important. Externally, again, you can invite external people to your Inventor of the Year award ceremony, but there are other things you could do. One of the things we do at Autumn, and I'll drop this link into the chat as well, is you can highlight your success stories that can be shared. And so at Autumn, we have something called the Better World Project success story database. We have about 550 success stories. And by success stories, I mean inventions that are on the market that arose out of university tech transfer, not just from the United States, from all around the world. And in fact, we welcome any of those examples free of charge, and we post them. So it's a way for your university to highlight, well, hey, we are known for this innovation, and that might be the case in your city, or your town, or your country. But if there's a way for us to amplify this even further, so that's another way to communicate the importance of what we do externally. One of the other things, and we've seen more and more of this, is the recognition that intellectual property and tech transfer is important. We think about it at Autumn as it's about impact, not income. So yes, technology transfer might result in revenue back to the institution, and that's great. But that's not why we do it. We do it for the impact, for getting those products on the market. And one of the ways you can measure impact is the economic impact that you might have from your inventions. So for example, you might have startup companies in your city that arose out of an invention from that university. Well, highlight that. Talk about the jobs that are now created because of the university invention. We do analyses where we say, all right, we've received this many inventions, this many products. That is equivalent to a gross domestic product, GDP, impact of this many $1 billion. So there are ways you can, there's ways you can communicate how important what you do is beyond just the product, but the economic and societal impact that it's having. So there, I could talk about this for a long, long time, but just wanted to give you pieces of this, and happy to dive into detail later.
Great, Steve. Thank you very much. Definitively is relevant and very important that we communicate these milestones in the transfer technology process. Here in Mexico, we say cacarear el huevo. I don't know how in English, but it's maybe to crow about the egg. This sound that with the chickens put the egg, you know. Here in Mexico, we say cacarear el huevo. Doctora Rocío, how we cacareamos el huevo? How we do this in the transfer technology in UNAM?
Sí, yo creo que en particular en nuestras instituciones y concretamente en la mía, nos falta mucho hacer ese trabajo. Mientras escuchaba a Stephen, te escuchaba a ti, Emanuel, pues venían a mi mente un par de tecnologías que han sido desarrolladas en la UNAM o en colaboración con empresas y que han sido muy exitosas, ¿no? Concretamente, el caso de que tal vez Marcela seguramente lo conoce bien y tal vez alguien de la audiencia, de laboratorios hilares, con sus famosos faboterápicos. Sin embargo, creo que nos ha faltado esa actividad de difundir, de comunicar, no solamente pues los resultados, sino también todo el trabajo que hubo detrás. Y a mí me parece que algo relevante es poder identificar los impactos y los beneficios para diferentes actores. En el caso concreto de Laboratorios Ilanes, con todo su grupo de antivenenos, ¿no? Pues bueno, pusieron o han puesto productos en el mercado que sirven muy bien para tratar envenenamientos de alacranes, envenenamientos por mordedura de araña, de víboras, etcétera, etcétera. Entonces, como sociedad tenemos un beneficio tangible al esta empresa poner un producto que podemos adquirir en la farmacia y que si lo necesitamos, pues sabemos que tiene resultados súper positivos. Pero creo que este desarrollo de tecnología dejó una derrama de conocimientos y de otros elementos más allá del simple producto. Y conste que no estoy minimizando el producto en sí, ¿no? Pero si revisamos la historia, hubo impactos en alumnos, porque se incorporaron alumnos a los grupos de los diferentes investigadores, concretamente el doctor Lurival Posani y el doctor Alejandro Cano. Entonces, hay derrama de conocimiento a esos nuevos estudiantes que se están formando y que se van a llevar herramientas novedosas, valiosas. Hay derrama cuando hay equipamiento en las facultades y en los departamentos. Y por supuesto, hay derramas también hacia la empresa que obtiene un producto nuevo a partir del cual puede generar nuevos ingresos y nuevos elementos que les van a permitir desarrollar otras cosas. Entonces, creo que es fundamental. Y así como pensaba en ese ejemplo, pensaba en otro en donde nos hemos cansado de llevar nuestra oferta tecnológica, tocar puertas una y otra vez y que nadie nos los abre. Y la pregunta es, ¿será que no estamos justo comunicando positivamente el impacto? Y venía a mi mente el caso concreto de la leche, del proceso para hacer leche deslactosada de la doctora Lidia Casas al inicio de los años 90. Hoy, si nosotros vamos a un Walmart, a una comercial mexicana, a un Soriana, pasamos por el pasillo de las leches, encontramos cientos de marcas de leches deslactosadas. Cuando Lidia Casas hace este proceso y este producto a principios de los 90, nos cansamos de tocar puertas con Alpura, leche Lala, sello rojo, etcétera, etcétera. Ya a nadie le interesó. ¿Era que el mercado no estaba maduro? ¿O fue que al centrarnos en la tecnología olvidamos comunicar asertivamente, efectivamente, los beneficios que todo esto podría traer, insisto, para todos los grupos de interés que va desde la empresa, el investigador y su grupo, los alumnos, la universidad y, por supuesto, la sociedad?
Great, Dr. Rosario. Yes, it's important, and it's sad that our technologies arrived very late because don't have the marketing elements to communicate the impact, the real impact of products. And maybe this is a issue that we need to talk later with real cases of successful cases, and discover what they do to really achieve this goal of arrive to the market. So this is a big issue, and maybe we need to talk later and more strategies about this. Well, finally, I want to ask to Steve, to Dr. Rosario, about this pull approach. It means about to listen the companies, about listen the people, the real problems, and change this approach that normally in our institutions, in our universities, normally they use the push approach. I resolve, I create my own word, and I answer some hypothetical problems. But really, my technology in my university resolve a real problem. So, Steve, what you think about this approach, or the pull approach, to listen real problems, and how you resolve, or how you, if you know about some strategy to increase this change in our researchers and in our inventors?
Yeah, that was to me, right? Yeah, okay. Thank you. And you're exactly right. So this difference between push and pull. The way I often think about this is a company has a very specific need for a specific product that does a specific thing. So very specific. A university might be working on a invention that is also very specific, works in a very specific way. Lining those two things up is really, really, really difficult. And so generally the best you could get to is, hey, this is kind of close to what you want, and maybe you could take what we have and further develop it, right? So that's if we try to go with the push approach. So the pull approach is so much better. And again, we're getting back to what we talked about a little earlier, which is collaborating with those companies earlier. So technology collaboration early will help define the products that come out. So rather than the university working on their product and a company having their own needs, if they both start at the beginning, they're actually moving in the right direction at the same time. And so I think that's one of the reasons why technology transfer again is expanding, and you're seeing more and more collaboration on the front end before an invention is even created, to allow for this pull, because then when that invention is created at your university with guidance from the company. So the company might say, this product needs to be radio translucent, right? You know, radio waves have to get through it. Imaging has to get through it. It has to be able to be gripped by gloved hands. You know, a bunch of specific things that maybe a professor might not know offhand. And so by doing that up front, now when that product is created, you have exactly the company that wants to advance that. That's the technology they've been looking for. So that's one good example. I'll give just one other kind of twist on that, and that is some universities are fortunate to have their own medical schools attached to it. That is a huge asset for the tech transfer office. And what do I mean by that? When you have a medical school attached, and let's just say it's a medical innovation, those researchers that are developing the innovation can get real-time feedback on their innovation by the customer, right? Which is what Rosario is mentioning, that which is the actual surgeon that's using the device. So you can actually say, this is a great invention for a neurosurgeon, and then give it to a neurosurgeon and say, what do you think? And they say, oh, well, there's no way I can twist it in this orientation, or this has to be a button, or it's way too thick. You can get real-time input. And that way, that push is a little easier in that case. I hope that makes sense. But you're exactly right. Engaging with companies earlier and earlier to understand exactly the parameters of what they're looking for just helps you advance those innovations rather than doing it, we call it in a vacuum, without any awareness of the needs.
Great, Steve. I resume or I conclude that your main action or strategy is more collaboration earlier.
Yep.
More collaboration earlier.
Yep.
That's the way, no?
Yep.
And there's a challenge.
It's a recurring theme. That's right.
Yes, yes,
Keeps
right.
coming over and over.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Rosario, how we change this approach from pull, instead of use this push approach to pull approach. Do you have any strategy or mechanism?
Pues sí, creo que se han intentado algunas cosas. Yo no tengo duda de que los mejores resultados en este tema de transferencia de tecnología se han dado con empresas que más o menos saben qué andan buscando, y a partir de allí, pues se puede ver si acá tenemos ya algo desarrollado, o se puede hacer una asistencia técnica, un trabajo de consultoría, o pues algo más completo y complejo, como podría ser un desarrollo tecnológico colaborativo, ¿no? ¿Qué estrategias se han implementado en algunas facultades o centros de la UNAM? Entre otras cosas, más que ir a ofrecer nuestro paquete de patentes o decir, pues tengo una matriz polimérica de sílice embebida en partículas de plata que nadie entiende, ¿no? Lo que hemos tratado de hacer a veces es catálogos de capacidades. Ajá. Yo tengo la capacidad como instituto, como departamento, de poder hacer análisis de materiales. Uh-huh. Y ahí dentro de materiales, pues ya podemos ir especificando, ¿no? Materiales de tipo metálico, o tengo esa capacidad de hacer de análisis de alimentos, ¿no? Porque a final de cuentas, un equipo o el conocimiento que un grupo de investigadores tiene, no solamente para una cosa. Uh-huh. Es multidireccional, sirve para muchas cosas. Entonces, si yo lo encasillo en algo súper específico, a lo mejor la contraparte no puede o no se ve ubicado allí, ¿no? Si trato de hacer como más generalizado, de decir, hey, industria farmacéutica, en Facultad de Química tenemos equipos que pueden ser usados para analizar materiales, tenemos un bioterio en donde ustedes pueden hacer sus pruebas clínicas, etcétera. Entonces, pues puede ser que digan, ok, pues esas capacidades me sirven, ¿no? Ya entrar a los detalles finos, pues puede ser, pero yo diría que esta estrategia de mostrar estas capacidades es de alguna manera tratar de mostrar el atractivo que tenemos, ¿no? Es, nuevamente, es cuando tú vas a conocer a alguna persona por primera vez, pues te peinas, te vistes bien, sonríes, porque quieres causar un impacto. Entonces, creo que estas estrategias buscan este propósito de busquemos engancharlos, enamorarlos, diciéndoles, tenemos esto y todavía más. Ven, conócenos, visítanos. Uh-huh. Y ese es el primer paso. Y si te gusta nuestras instalaciones, nuestro laboratorio, pues entonces podemos seguir platicando.
Great, Doctora Rosario. I take from both of you the catalog of capabilities. I will implement in my office because this is very important. It's a way to connect with the companies, with the real users, show what we have a capability, and they can identify exactly. And also, I take Steve, the more collaboration earlier, as my new way to work and plan in my office. Thank you. Finally, we have 10 minutes, I think, to the end. So I will read some questions. So in the way you can answer these questions, okay? Let me stop my presentation. Okay, let me see. Okay, good. Antonio Remes, greetings. I have a question for Stephen. Steve, Antonio Remes, Steve, he say, nowadays in the United States, there is a national strategy to develop artificial intelligence in accordance to the final report of the National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence. What cooperative network could be developed between the United States and Mexico to work with this technology? Could it be possible to develop a trustworthy regional ecosystem between Mexico and the United States to work with artificial intelligence and emerging technologies?
Good question. So as you mentioned, we're at the national strategy level. And so I think what you're describing is more of a bilateral approach to this. And so I'm not sure that that would happen at a university, Mexican American or U.S. Mexican university interaction. I think that a regional ecosystem would make a lot of sense. Honestly, waiting for the government to catch up to things sometimes takes longer. So one of the things I might suggest is identifying those universities in the United States that are in areas of overlap with your institution, and really reaching out to them. And again, we're back to collaborating early, working with those groups earlier, maybe at a university level initially, because I think what you're describing is more of a national level, which I think would be great. I think the time it takes for this, and with the pace that artificial intelligence is growing and expanding, I think we'll always be a little bit behind. So again, I would say identify those institutions that are working on relevant areas of interest. Maybe your researchers have relationships with researchers at other institutions. And I think one of the things we've realized in tech transfer is it is not a country, it is not just a single university, single department, a single inventor type of innovations anymore. These are turning into multidisciplinary, multi-institutional, potentially multinational innovations that are being developed in conjunction with universities around the world. So I'm sorry, I don't have like you should talk to this guy. We're not at that level, but hopefully some of these comments might be helpful for you, Antonio. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Antonio. Doctora Rosario, in your experience, which path for technology transfers, it is licensing, startup, has the highest success rate nowadays?
Creo que la combinación de todas. Leía en el chat, ¿no? La cuestión de los startups, por ejemplo. Creo que ese es un buen mecanismo, ¿no? Y que puede ser muy exitoso. Me viene igual, permítame un ejemplo rápido, el caso del doctor Enrique Galindo del Instituto de Biotecnología. Es un excelente investigador que ha desarrollado muchas cosas, que tiene experiencia en transferir tecnologías, y de repente pues hizo un desarrollo de un producto para combatir hongo en mango, y por más que tocaron puertas, tampoco nadie quiso ese producto. Y lo que en esta búsqueda alguien le comentó, bueno, y si tu producto es tan bueno y que confías tanto en él, ¿por qué no pones tu propia empresa? Y pues el doctor Enrique Galindo le tuvo fe a su invención y pudo, a partir de procesos de incubación, de procesos de fomento a este tipo de empresas, cubrir todas las etapas para poder transformar su invención en un producto que tú ya puedes adquirir a través de Mercado Libre a partir de Amazon. Entonces, no creo definitivamente que sea el camino más sencillo. Si de por sí ya ser inventores nos cuesta trabajo, el ser inventores y empresarios nos da mucho más temor. Pero creo que puede ser también el más exitoso en el sentido de que tienes en una sola persona a estas dos figuras y que es más fácil empujar y no estar tratando de convencer nuevamente a alguien de que lo que tienes en tu portafolio, en tu laboratorio, vale la pena. Entonces, pues sintetizando, creo que son múltiples, pero sin duda alguna, las startups creo que han demostrado ser exitosas y un buen mecanismo.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Rosario. Okay, we are near to the end of this session. So please, Steve, if you want, and Dr. Rosario, you want to share with the audience a final message, a final tip or trick to this object wall of the seminar, the workshop about the transfer technology best practices. Thank you.
Great. Rosario, would you like to go first?
Rosario.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Yo concluiría diciendo que la transferencia de tecnología es un proceso complejo, es un proceso que muchas veces es muy frustrante, pero que cuando vemos resultados de estas tecnologías que se han podido transferir y rendir frutos en diferentes contextos y actores, resulta en un trabajo muy gratificante, de poder decir, todo este esfuerzo, este trabajo tiene resultados. Y concluiría diciendo que para que también podamos tener éxito, necesitamos continuidad. Continuidad en todos los aspectos, y pues seguir, como decimos, jalando la carreta un día sí y el otro también.
Okay, thank you, doctora Rosario. Remember cacarear el huevo y jalar la carreta. Steve, phrases that we have here in Mexico. Okay, Steve, ahead,
Great.
please.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to Red OTT for the invitation. As I mentioned, technology transfer is happening across the globe, and we need to work together. And so I've learned things on this, and I just appreciate the interaction that we've had. We've had a long-standing relationship with Red OTT, and look forward to that continuing. Back to kind of, closing thoughts, just a couple of things I'll just repeat that I said earlier. One, innovation happens everywhere. And so make sure you capture that. Make sure that you're reaching out to those entities that or groups that you might not have. You never know where that next amazing invention comes from. I think Rosario said it really well. This is an unbelievable profession in that you are changing and shaping the world. And so you are helping the professors that we have on the line bring the product of years of work to the market to create public impact, which is just, there can't be a more noble profession as far as I can see. And then a couple of other quick things. Tech transfer is about impact, not income. So yes, again, revenue is generated along the way, but if your focus is on money, it's not the right focus. It has to be on impact. Money will come later, maybe, and sometimes it doesn't, but the impact, that is going to be what changes the world. So that's a second thing. And then, yeah, we said it earlier, collaborate earlier and earlier. This is not something that can just happen in parallel. They need to actually work together, and you'll find a even more effective tech transfer ecosystem the more you engage with the customers. So again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Dr. Rosario. Thank you to everyone that attended this session. It was a pleasure. I learned a lot from both of you, and I hope we can be in touch, and after we can have another experience like this. Thank you, Marisol. Thank you, Marcela. See you in the next session of our workshop on best practices on transfer technology. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Stephen. It was a pleasure to share this space with you.